Okay, we're going to go move on and we're going to start solving second degree equations. That means our problems today are going to have been squared or raised to the third power, etc., etc. Yesterday's we only had to do it to the first degree. All right, so here we go. Solve for all x's that are between 0 and 360. And I'm going to add one more thing in here. We're going to let you go to the nearest degree. Make it easy on ourselves. All right, first thing we want to do is we want to solve this like a regular algebra problem. And since it's raised to the second power and it's set equal to 0, that means we're going to have to factor. Some of us may be happy to look at it as no cosines in it, 8x squared minus 7x plus 1, and try and factor it without the cosines in our way. So let's see, 8x, what? I already see a problem. Two things that multiply to 1. Well, if I put an 8 here and an x and 1, that gets me 8. If I put a 1 here, that'll get me the 7x in the middle. But it's got to be a plus 1, so that would have to be negative. Negative is the only way I could get a plus 1, but a negative 8 and a negative 1 would get me negative 9, or a plus and a plus would get me positive 9, so this doesn't factor traditionally. And you remember what happens if we can't factor something? That's right, we have to use the quadratic formula. All right, so let's get started here. First thing I'm going to do is pick out my a, b, and c values. My a, b, and c values are 8, negative 7, and 1. And I'm going to put them into my quadratic formula. Negative b. So that means b is negative 7, so the opposite of negative 7 is 7. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, 49, minus 4. My a value is 8. Whoops. And my c value is 1. All over 2a. And I say that all over. I'll say it once, then I'll mark you wrong on your test. I can already name the 3 people who still don't put it all over. They only put the radical as the numerator. Gotta learn it, people. You've got to learn it. All right, so now I'm going to clean this up. 7 plus or minus. Well, I think we can handle all this in our head. 49 minus 32, 17 over 16. All right, so what did we get here? We can do the quadratic formula, but what exactly did we get? We figured out that the cosine of some angle gets me these ridiculous answers. That's one, and this is the other. Well, that's great. I still have to figure out the angles. How am I going to do that? Well, we're going to go back to the good old unit circle. So, whip out your graphing calculator. Make sure you're in degree. And I'm going to take 7 plus the square root of 17, divide that by 16, and there we go. We got a decimal approximation. So again, what does this mean? The cosine of some angle that gets me 0.6952. All right, that means I'm going to have to inverse cosine this to get my x alone. All right, so over here we will inverse cosine my answer. And we're going to get 46. All right, so we're on our way here. We found out that x is one angle of 46 degrees. But wait a second. We've got to come back here. And we realize that this cosine was positive. And we will look in our unit circle here. Our cosine is positive here and here. So I'm going to take that 46 and stick it into both triangles, and then I'm going to figure out how big all my angles are. Alright, well, we got the first one, 46. Let's keep going and get our second angle. Oh, that's right, we're 46 short of 360. So this one is 360 minus 46. Well, 360 minus 46 is 314. All right, but we're not done yet, because we got all these answers from when we did 7 plus the square root of 17 divided by 16. We've got a whole nother set of angles to look for. We got to figure out 7 minus the square root of 17 all over 16. Back we go. 7 minus the square root of 17. Divide that by 16. All right. So we know the cosine of some angle is 0.1798. All right, inverse cosine that to get rid of the function of cosine and figure out what x is. X is inverse cosine my answer, 80. But once again, it's positive. We're back in the first and fourth quadrants? Yep. You'll see why in a second. All right. So I'm going to put an 80 in here. I'm going to put an 80 in here. Clean up all the old and figure out my new angles. All right, well, the first one is 80. From here to here is 80. If I keep going, $360 minus 80, just like the last one. 360 minus 80 gets me 280. So when I'm done with this, I came up with 4 possible answers. My angle x could have been 46 degrees, 314 degrees, 80 degrees, or 280 degrees. Now I'm going to give you a better visual of that. This graph. This graph I got by doing this. Go over to your calculator. Let's make sure your window is set up from 0 to 360 again. And in y, let's type in this graph. 8 cosine x squared minus 7 cosine x plus 1. Now below here, I'm going to put 0. Because remember, our question was really this. Where did this graph of 8 cosine squared x minus 7 cosine x plus 1 equal 0? So I'm trying to see, where does this graph equal this graph? All right, now my window I may have to do a little changing with my y-axis. See, if I graph it normally, I get this. I don't see the peak over here on my graphing calculator. That's because it peaks up here over at somewhere around 6. But this is what we want right here. We want to see where these graphs cross the line 0. And they cross at 1, 2, 3, 4 different spots. That's why we got 4 answers. But once again, we have our formula over here to follow. If we wanted to figure out these points of intersections, we could press second function trace, choose intersect, and we're going to move our cursor so that it's over one of these. Now notice right here again, I'm at 233. You got to know your scale, 90, 180, 270. I'm moving my cursor. You'll see it, it's coming. Wait for it, there it is. And that's my first point of intersection because this is the line y equals 0 right here. And if I press this 3 times, see what it came up with? 280, just like the number we got. And I can keep repeating this. To find my other answers. But once again, you can't just cheat like this and press your answers on a calculator. You are going to have to show me all this work. You're going to have to show me you knew how to use the quadratic formula. And once you get to this step right here, then you can cheat on your calculator and just get your answers.